college is right for some people, maybe not for others. I went because I just went. My parents said we go to college. That's what we do. And
Yep.
I went to Arizona State University. After 2 years, I was like invited to like not really come back because I wasn't good. I was good at partying. I wasn't good at school. And I got to go to junior college the next year, and I took a real business class, like from a real business owner, taught a real business class, not a teacher. Like I'm talking straight up, this guy owned franchises of like something like a spaghetti company. He owned like 5 or 6 restaurants, franchise, came in, and he taught us. And he recommended a list of books we can read. And one of them was How to Win Friends and Influence People. So picture like 19-year-old boy, wants to be influential. I read the book. I had no idea that you could learn yourself better. So it was during that book, and I don't even think I even read it. I think I understood the cover and maybe read a few pages. I said, wait a second. A human being can learn themselves better. You don't have to like be who you were your whole life. You weren't born a varsity athlete. You weren't born rich and powerful. You could actually learn yourself better. I know that sounds ridiculous now, but in 1990s, that was what hit me.
Yeah.
And then I got into business for myself, and I realized that I was really good at business, but I was really better at helping people run their businesses and really better at helping people run the way they do their life. So there's a lot more to the story in there, but that was the day I sat there with that book at the library that I borrowed. I looked at it and I go, whoa. And a few years later, I met this guy. He's up there. His name is Jim Rohn. He was my mentor. I know Tony Robbins. Tony worked for him back in the day. I knew Jim since I was about 20. And he took me under his wing and taught me a little bit about personal development and personal responsibility and communication. And boom, until he passed in 2009, he was guiding me a lot on this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but I went to Arizona State as well, Fork and Bells.
Okay.
But I also, my junior year, did a semester at Mesa Community College.
That's where I went.
Yeah, because I couldn't get residency and I was paying full price. And so I left and went to stayed in Arizona.
$300 at MCC.
It was
like
so cheap.
Dobson, it was $300 to meet new people.
Yep.
I'll tell you how entrepreneurial was.
Yep.
My parents paid for it, and then I was able to actually transfer the credits. So I actually convinced my parents to allow me to pull out the ASU credits, keep some of the money, do it at ASU. So instead of like $2,000 at ASU, I pulled out the money, took the same class at MCC, it transferred over, gave them half the money, and I got half the money.
There you go. I was able to reapply as a resident, and they gave me residency, which made no sense, but that's the way it worked. Well, you talked about your role models, like Jim Rohn. I mean, he is one of the founding fathers of personal development. Yep. Who else because people, when they think of personal development, they think of Tony Robbins, think of Jim Rohn.
Yep.
Who else impacted your path?
So there's people that I met personally like Jim, and there's ones I've never met in my life. And Tony, I definitely loved his material. It was a stage in my life that Tony Robbins, I learned a lot about how to audience and work with people and stage presence. I learned a lot there. I learned quite a bit there was a guy, I never took a class ever, but there's a guy named Werner Erhard that created EST back in the day. And I'd never been to EST, I'd never been to Landmark, but I studied what this guy's belief systems were. And I learned quite a bit from him in communication. Richard Bandler is the guy that taught me neuro-linguistic programming. Okay. I learned from Richard Bandler. I met one of those mentors. I've had a bunch. And one was even there was a gentleman named Maurice, right? And he got me involved with direct sales at a young age. And he taught me about sales. He taught me about business. He taught me about learning to not care at all. And that was very, very fascinating. He's the one that got me to realize that no one's going to care as much as you do. And if you spend your time caring about how they care about you, you are never going to live a fulfilled life. So I haven't talked to Maurice in probably a decade. I ran into him randomly at Mastro's here in Scottsdale one night. And he's like, Michael Bernoff, how you doing? He still looks the same age. He's probably in his 70s now. And I've had quite a few. I've met a lot of people over the years. A guy named Mark. This is interesting. So you never know, like, his name's Mark McKee, and I've never talked about it on a podcast before, but this is a great story for all of you entrepreneurs and parents. I was struggling when I was first starting what I was doing. And I remember he took me to PF Chang's once, and he's in front of me, and I was drinking at the time. And I remember he put like a bottle in front of me, and he'd be like a microphone. And he's like, so Michael Bernoff, we're going to interview you. How did you get this far? And he's like doing a fake interview with me at dinner. Do you know what I'm saying? And a couple of years later, he's like, let's just go to look at cars today. And I remember we went to this Infiniti dealership, and we test drove cars and looked. And I didn't realize till about 10 years later, I go, dude, you were dream building with me. He literally took me to a dealership to smell and be in a newer car. And I've got nice cars now, but I was just saying that was fascinating. He was a guy that he's probably owns 400 to 500 homes free and clear, sold them, flipped them, rented them, like a maven, owns a plane. Yeah. You wouldn't know market $5. But why I tell you this is I've had some very people that people don't know, they've never heard of in their life, that moved me. He got me to tell the story of how I became great when I had nothing in my pocket.